separatist elements in London in UK. New Delhi here has taken a stand, and in a show of rare optics, barricades have been removed from outside the British High Commission office in the national capital. In the state of Punjab, the manhunt launched by the state police to nab Amritpal Singh, that's on. Multiple state police agencies are working round the clock to nab this man who's responsible for waging a war against national security and threatening the rule of law in the state. Our focus is on the protests which are happening in London, what happens there, and all eyes on whether this time London police is able to do its job, which is to keep the Indian High Commission secure. Our top focus.
At the UK High Commissioner's residence in the national capital, and you can see how the security has in fact been removed from here.
Standing outside the British High Commission, and you can see that normal internal security is there, but no sort of barricading or police presence for that matter.
19 तारीख को जो लंदन में इंडियन एम्बेसी के ऊपर से जो तिरंगा हटाया गया, इन लोगों ने पूरी दुनिया में सिख कौम को बदनाम करने का काम किया है.
Local police of London are trying their best to ensure that what happened last Sunday does not get repeated. There is enough barricading on both sides of the street here. Barricades being put up and a heavy security presence being placed to ensure there is no breakdown of law and order.
Well, getting us a sense from the ground is Ritangshu Bhattacharya. He's live with us from the Indian High Commission in London. Let me quickly take in a word from him. Ritangshu, what's the situation like there? An uneasy calm that prevails. The situation under control? So far, so good?
Well, yes, indeed. The situation is under control. What we have done is we've come back on this side, right in front of the Indian High Commission here. Let me just turn the camera around to show what's happening. The protest is on the other side of the street. It's been a bit obscured by traffic right now. Meanwhile, I'll just show you where I am. This is, of course, in front of the High Commission again. What the local police have done is, after initially barricading this entire area off, they've allowed pedestrian traffic to go by, and also some of the media contingent here as well. So the important thing which our viewers in India will be happy to see is that the flag of the tricolour is safe and secure. It's fastened with barbed wire, as you can see. The other bigger tricolour, which looks as kind of... So,
we're just closing the gates now, so
okay.
Everyone needs to leave.
All right. So they've just asked us to once again to clear this area out. So I'll just walk back a bit. But you can see this is the crowd which has assembled here. It's a crowd of about 200 to 300 people through a very rough estimate, I can say, at this moment. Sorry, officer. And yeah, so they're clearing this area out again. There are about 300 to 400 people who have accumulated. So far, it's been a peaceful protest. Slogans are being chanted for Khalistan, for Amritpal Singh. There are placards there as well. There are some anti-India and anti-Modi slogans which are being shouted here as well. But largely peaceful. The Met Police is asking us to clear the barricades as well. And we cooperate with them because we don't want any obstructions to law and order. But yes, this is the situation.
If one were to contrast this with the kind of arrangements that were made last time, also, what's the key difference? And the second aspect that you can perhaps tell us is, who are these groups per se? Is there a name of these organizations who are organizing these protests? As Ritangshu gets us all those details, those are the local officers there at the London Police, which is trying to clear that entire area. Ritangshu, coming back to you, the 2 points. One is, if we were to contrast today with what happened on the 19th of March, what is different? And secondly, who are these organizations which are protesting? Is there one single group which has organized this so-called protest?
Well, Anusha, what we see so far are flags with Khalistan and flags with Punjab referendum. So that gives us an idea of about the groups. So they've been very careful not to highlight one specific political or one specific religious group which they're coming from, in order to keep the messaging on the broader messaging on our Khalistan. In terms of the security, before I just touch upon security, Anusha, two things which I like to mention here. The crowd is increasing. There are a lot of people coming in from different streets, and they're all accumulating in this area which you see here. Mostly it's been peaceful so far, but there are people with face coverings and hoods as well. And so it's a state of uneasy calm. There are minors who are also a part of this protest, and they are being made to hold up placards and slogans as well. In terms of security deployment compared to last Sunday, the situation could not be any more different here.
Yeah.
This is generally an area which has very little, if not zero, local police presence here, as is the case with most normal streets of London. But this time there's a very, very heavy police barricading which is here on both sides. They are periodically sanitizing this area in front of the Indian High Commission to ensure that there's no scope of the High Commission being overwhelmed by people as it was. It's still a bit too early to say whether this protest has flopped or such, because it's swelling in numbers. But so far, it looks to be a peaceful protest, Anusha.
I hope it remains peaceful, and this time there's no damage to the Indian High Commission. My colleague Ritangshu getting us all the details. We'll continue going to Ritangshu and getting more details. The protests are underway. The numbers are rising. The number of protesters are increasing. But it remains peaceful so far. That's the good part. Well, taking this entire issue to our guest as well, Mr. Arun Anand, who is the consulting editor of First Post, is with us on the broadcast. Adit Kothari, who is the founder of Indic Society from London, is with us on the show. Mr. Sushant Sareen, who is a senior fellow from ORF, and Mr. Anil Trigunyat, who is a former diplomat, is also with us on the broadcast. Mr. Anil Trigunyat, coming to you first and taking in a view, there is a rare show of optics that that New Delhi has done. Here in the national capital, the British High Commission, the office and the residence of the Commissioner, barricades were removed. This was to drive home the point that we're not liking what's happening in London. The authorities can do better. And there is far more action that was anticipated by the London police and authorities. Do you think that messaging has gone?
Well, I hope so. As you know, the diplomacy is the game of reciprocity.
Yeah.
And with regard to the Britishers, it has been done several times in the recent past. They were not acknowledging or respecting the vaccine that came from their country and was produced in India when the Indians were vaccinated. So India had to take that action, and Dr. Jaishankar was very clear. And once we did, same thing applied for the visas. Now, this is not the first time India has taken. If you remember, one of our diplomats was harassed in New York at one time, and this is exactly what we had done a few years ago. So it is absolutely essential. But on the larger question is that the diplomatic missions work under the Vienna Conventions, under which it is incumbent upon the host state to provide security and to protect the diplomats and the diplomatic missions. And they're working in their countries. And these are the standard protocol and practices. Now, we have seen that the British government has repeatedly failed, or the police or law and order authorities have repeatedly failed to protect the Indian mission. It is not the first time it has happened, and therefore it is absolutely essential.
But do you really think that this failure is something which just happened, or this was deliberate? Because there are certain ground reports that had come in, and my colleague who's reporting from the ground earlier had also pointed out that how during London riots, the London police was very proactive. They ensured that everybody who created a ruckus, who was a threat to law and order, was taken into custody. The due process of law was followed. When events like 19th of March and what happened at the Indian High Commission is allowed, and the manner in which the arrests have happened, it could be said that the arrests are not happening at the pace that they should be. About 1 or 2 people have been arrested. Do you think this is deliberate?
Well, it clearly smacks of the deliberate act or the complicity on the part of the authorities. And I always say that this appears to be a very grand design which is happening across various Western countries. It is not here. It happened in San Francisco the other day. Our consulate was again attacked. And so they know who are Khalistani elements. They allowed them the referendums despite Indian government's protests. And so it very clearly is some kind of a design against the Indian state.
Mr. Sushant Sareen, I'm coming to you, taking in a point from you. As far as this design against the Indian state is concerned, elements like these, pro-separatist elements, are not just active in UK, but in countries like Canada, USA, even Australia. India has repeatedly stated this position that we are unhappy with these kind of groups being allowed to run their activities on foreign soil. Should India take a stronger position?
Yeah, I think you need to distinguish between the different countries.
Okay.
I think there is a particular problem in the UK and in Canada. In San Francisco, very often people plead that the police has become so dysfunctional that they can't protect, they're not even able to do their normal policing. How do you expect them to protect anything? Not that that's an excuse, but one can even understand what is happening in Frisco.
Yeah.
Australia, of course, is a new case, but I think the Australians have moved with a certain degree of alacrity and are now cracking down on these fellows. But I think Britain and Canada are particularly problematic. Britain, because the Brits have always played these games. I, for a second, do not believe that there was no complicity of the British establishment with what happened, not just on the 19th, but it's happened on a number of occasions in the past. Now, I can understand the first time it happens, it's an accident, it happens and you don't know, you were caught unawares. But if it happens, one after another, then clearly there's something seriously wrong. Now, the Brits seem claim at least to have a fabulous intelligence system internally. Have they not got any fix on these thugs and terrorists, both the Khalistani variety and the Pakistani variety? Do they have absolutely no clue what these guys are up to? Now, I know because it's in the public domain, that the Pakistan High Commission in the United Kingdom, in London, actually pays people to carry out these demonstrations. They either pay people or they intimidate members of their diaspora to come out on the streets. They bust them over in front of the Indian High Commission to then assault and attack the Indian High Commission. Do the Brits not know this? And what do they do about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So for them to now pretend that suddenly they've woken up and then make this tamasha down, now we are putting in a lot of security, lot of cops, all of that, that's utter nonsense. I don't buy anything which the Brits say, because they have always, right from 1947,
that takes me
48,
logically to another limb of the argument. Mr. Arun Anand, I think that's a fair point that Sushant Sareen has made, that with the kind of intelligence acumen, the kind of inputs that the Brits have, the manner in which they claim that they have a rule of law in their country, they must be aware about what's happening and how are these groups really running. The hand of Pakistan is not unknown. It's not something new. But it's creating serious troubles here in India. And right now, with the state of Punjab trying to clamp down on element like Amritpal Singh and Waris Punjab Day, this becomes a direct internal security situation. Why is UK government taking the position that it is? And it's not new. Mr. Anand, if you can hear me, sir. All right, I'll try and connect with Mr. Arun Anand. I guess there's a network issue there. Mr. Adit Kothari, who's the founder of Indic Society from London, is also with us on the show. Mr. Kothari, would you share the same perception that Mr. Sushant Sareen has, or the analysis that he has rather put forward, that somewhere there's a complicity of the administration?
It's very rarely that I get to disagree with Sushantji. Unfortunately, today is not one of those days. I completely concur that what the UK agencies, the polity, the security apparatus has been doing vis-a-vis all of these malfunctioning of their security with regards to providing security to the Indian High Commission. And this is not the first time. It's happened concurring number of times. It's merely paying lip service, whether it be in 1973, 84 during Ravindra Matre's murder, even 2019 when, the Indian High Commission came under immense attack from both, the cabal of the Islamists in conjunction with the Khalistanis. All we got was just lip service, and we've never got anything beyond that. The problem, however, I see is more from the Indian side, and this is something that the Indian diaspora has been demanding for a very, very long time. That I think the Indian diplomacy needs to come out and make the cost much higher. I think the FTA has been overlooming for a very long time. Why don't you attach a security concern to that FTA? All of these people who have been easily identified with regards to who were the people who were essentially in front of the Indian High Commission, who were the people who were essentially creating the ruckus. They have been identified. Most of them are on asylum visa. Some of them are on student visa. Cancel everything. Demand that the UK.
No, I do take that point that perhaps the cost should be increased. Anilji, I'm coming back to you. Does India have that bargaining power? Can we increase the cost? If in any country, say in UK, which is one of the superpowers of the world, if it allows certain kind of anti-India activities to fester on its soil, to the extent of what we saw on the 19th of March and even at some other earlier instances, Mr. Sareen also drew a special case for Canada and UK. Does India have it that we can raise the diplomatic cost or any kind of trade cost related to UK? Can we have that bargaining chip with them?
Well, I think I fully agree with both Sushant and your colleague from UK that the costs have to be increased. And I think that the government is looking at it. And we have seen that it has yielded. As I mentioned earlier, it happened during the vaccine cases and the visas, both the cases when Dr. Jaishankar just very plainly told his counterpart, they yielded very quickly and everything started working all right. But at the same time, this is precisely the language these so-called superpowers understand. When you come from the position of strength, and India is not a banana republic, it does know how to deal with these kind of situations, and I'm quite sure this is going to happen gradually, systematically, and very in direct manner.
Mr. Anand, coming to you, I hope you can hear me this time. We were talking about the fact that how is it that India can raise the cost? And it's true that for decades, this kind of issues, when it comes to countries like Canada and UK, especially in America and Australia as well, but more so in countries like UK and Canada. How is it that we can ensure that the governments in these respective countries don't in some way become complicit with anti-India elements? In fact, there are some people who are openly anti-India, pro-separatists, and are part of the governments in the country of Canada. That's very, very problematic for a country like India.
See, I think it's not actually beyond a point practically possible, because India being emerging as a global power, so that doesn't suit most of the existing global order. So we can't expect that the Western world is going to do anything basically which kind of strengthen India. Rather, there will always be elements in the establishment who would rather nurture or kind of basically look the other way around, as we have seen happening in UK and in some other parts of the world. Because anything which hurts India at one level, that suits the Western world also. So I think that is one thing. But India has to constantly maintain a pressure. And I think the Indian diaspora can play a very significant role in this. Because as we saw, when this Leicester riots happened sometime back in UK, the Indian diaspora had played a very significant role in that, in terms of kind of countering the misinformation campaign. So I think that is what needs to be done, and there has to be a consistent campaign to dispel this the false narratives.
The role that diaspora can play. It's an interesting point that you raised. Mr. Serene, I'm coming back to you. While on one hand, look, all is fine between India and Canada, great relationship, India and UK, cultural ties, trade ties, many other cooperation that has happened between the two nations, diaspora from India to UK, of course, huge number. But that being said, there's a very candid point that Mr. Arun Anand just made, that anything anti-India somehow happens to favor the Western powers, and that position has sustained. Can the diaspora play an active role in changing that position?
I think both the diaspora can play a role and India itself can play a role. For example, you talk about leverages over Britain. How many thousands of students go to Britain every year? Virtually, British universities are being run by the monies we pay.
Exactly.
British citizens pay 1/3 of the fees which our students go and pay out there. Right? That's a big leverage that you have. You can start de-recognizing British degrees. In any case, the people who go to Britain, what do they come back with? They come back with that goddamn woke culture of theirs and spread all kinds of nonsense out here anyways. So I think we can do away with, we have leverages, number one. On the trade issues like Adit spoke about, there are a number of other things we can do. See, in the case of Canada, again, there is the student issue. There is many other issues. But where I partly agree with Mr. Anand and where I have a slight disagreement with him. Look, I suspect that what is happening over the last couple of years is that this is being not used to damage India as much as used as a leverage against India. And for example, last time during the 1980s when the Khalistan movement was at its peak, the Brits and the Americans and all of the other Western countries turned a complete blind eye to it. They completely turned a blind eye to all the bomb blasts, the massacres that were taking place in Punjab. But the reason was because India was seen as in the Russian camp, Russia was in Afghanistan, the entire Western world was fighting a war out there. This time around, I don't know, and I'm speculating out here.
Okay.
Is it that maybe because India is trying to pursue a somewhat independent foreign policy vis-a-vis Russia, Ukraine war, on a number of other issues, that maybe this is being used as a kind of a lever against India? But even if it is, the fact that you are not able to protect an Indian mission and you're not able to protect members of the Indian diaspora who happen to be your citizens, that you are leaving them open to assault by these thugs and these terrorists, I think raises serious questions about the kind of civilization you claim you are,
and more importantly, all the civil the rule of law, a principle. It is said that it came from the English, the rule of law, the principle. The law must catch up. It hasn't really when it comes to these cases. The number of arrests that should have happened in a matter like this have not really happened. Adit, do you agree that a diaspora can play a role, of course, with the Indian government and them taking a different position? But what is the role that perhaps student community, a very strong vocal community, the business community can play in a country like UK?
That's what we have been working very hard to sort of unite and sort of galvanize the Indian diaspora to come out and be aware of these kind of narratives that have been playing out against not only India, but against now the civilizational values of India. The Leicester riots happened and the kind of disinformation that was out not only from the media, but also from the academia was absolutely shocking. And that's where I think the student community really needs to come strong. And I think the government of the days also needs to come out and call that out, because the kind of rabid agenda or the false narratives being peddled out through various UK universities is absolutely damning. I mean, from stop caste discrimination to dismantling global Hindutva to how India is treating its own minorities. These are narratives which are playing out in UK universities day in, day out. They're inviting people like Muzammil Ayub Thakur, who's a known terrorist in India, and he gets a platform at King's College to go out and engage with students. So the Indian government also needs to tackle this at a much more systemic level.
That's I want to take this a step ahead. So far we have spoken about the discourse, posturing, whether people have been arrested or not. They're not able to provide security to the Indian High Commission. Well, those are issues and things which are visible to the naked eye. Anilji, but it has to be a thick nexus of anti-India elements which are operating out of foreign nations. And one suspects that there are certain groups which are operating out of UK and Canada, which are not just propelling this anti-India discourse, but there is a solid financial backing to it. And this nexus runs right into the state of Punjab, and that is how elements like Amritpal Singh could have been planted. And I find it difficult to believe that the authorities wouldn't know about it.
Well, as I told you earlier, I think that this is the Indian authorities. If they do not know, then it is a totally unacceptable situation, because the Khalistani elements have been from time and again rising in those countries where we talked about the funding comes from there. There are various methodologies that they adopt, and India government very well knows how they work. Our intelligence community must be aware of it. Why we have intelligence cooperation with different countries also. At the same time, we know ISI has been working overdrive in fomenting trouble in Punjab, especially as India reaches the election time. But this time it happens to be a nexus, in my view, both the deep state in those countries, as well as with ISI and these Pakistani and local elements who have been troubled. But fact remains is that we need to take exemplary action. And as has been mentioned, it has to be a holistic approach, both in India, within and outside India. Also, we need to do that. I mean, if we have exactly certain costs, and this message has to go very clear, irrespective of the fact that there's a G7, G20, what all. Those are there, but at the same time, we need to be very careful that if your internal security is compromised, then it is extremely difficult for you to sustain anything further.
Mr. Arun Anand, there's a question on the manner in which an element like Amritpal Singh, relatively new to Punjab's political spectre, was able to expand himself politically and culturally. It is very clear that he was propped up in the state of Punjab by anti-India elements, but the question is also on the Punjab government and the authorities and the law and order machinery, that how was he allowed to do what he was doing? And it's only when, you know, it crossed a certain line and there was a police station which was threatened, and there were, you know, there was a fear that law and order situation could go out of hand in the border state of Punjab. Only did then the authorities act. Even right now, he's on the run. There's a question that we must ask internally as well.
I think you are absolutely right. We need to set our own house in order also. We can tackle these Khalistani elements abroad if we are able to tackle, you know, the situation here also. Because until and unless we set our own house in order, I think it will be very difficult for India to have that kind of, you know, kind of moral standing also where we can talk tough with the foreign government. But having said that, see, the problem is that law and order is a state subject, and the central agencies couldn't intervene directly. And we have a government in Punjab which has proved to be basically a disaster as far as law and order is concerned. I think it's a colossal failure. I don't have any doubt in saying that it's a colossal failure on the part of the Aam Aadmi Party government, which is sitting there. And they should have acted well in time. You allow, you know, police stations to be attacked, and before that also number of incidents have happened. You talk to your reporters in Punjab, and of course they must have been telling, you know, it's a terrible situation, which is it's an overall terrible situation there. So I think it's a colossal failure. But now being in a federal structure, and then, you know, with having Aam Aadmi Party government there, so beyond a point, you know, you can't do anything. So I think that's a challenge which we are facing.
Mr. Sushant Sareen, it's a colossal failure. Would you agree with that assessment of Mr. Arun Anand, that these separatist elements from the UK soil or the Canadian soil are doing what they want to do, but it's our country, our internal security that we have to defend at the end of the day?
Yeah, but you know, but I wouldn't pin it only on the Aam Aadmi Party. I think they must certainly take their share of the blame because they've been in government for over a year now. And a lot of this stuff has been happening under their watch. Plus, there are serious allegations and insinuations being made about their links with some of these elements. But I think as a nation and as a polity, we have taken our eye off the ball, at least insofar as Punjab is concerned. This thing has not started just yesterday or 1 year back or after this clown Amritpal Singh came back. This has been brewing for a fair bit of time. There has been this you know, this subterranean kind of a propaganda which has been going on. They've tried to revive the Khalistani movement within India. We know it for a fact, Anusha, that there has been this growing nexus between the terrorists, between the drug mafia and politics, of course, and the gangsters. So we know all of this has been, you know, kind of, there's been an intersection of all of these, which is now being reflected in the toxic politics and the toxic rhetoric which we hear in Punjab. So this has been brewing for some time, and we haven't really cracked down on it. So one part is, of course, the law and order machinery, tightening it up and ensuring that these guys, you know, stay within the four corners of the law. But apart from that, there is another campaign that has to be run. You know, the kind of disinformation and the kind of pernicious propaganda that has been carried out to drive a wedge between the communities, that needs to be addressed. And you see the government and all its agencies and all the people, well-meaning people, being totally remiss in addressing that particular aspect of the problem. So I think we need to attack this at multiple levels. There's not just one kind of a dimension to this issue. There are multiple dimensions to it. And that is what will pull us through. But at least, I think the good part, Anusha, is that at least people have finally woken up. Ajnala was a blessing in disguise, because otherwise we were sleepwalking into a disaster. Until Ajnala happened, this whole Amritpal thing was being played down. After Ajnala, nobody can duck this entire issue. So it has received the kind of salience it should have got when this guy first emerged on the scene, but even now it's not too late.
I agree with you there that there's just not one layer or one angle from which this needs to be countered. Whether it's the security angle, the financial angle, even the manner in which the discourse is being put out, the wedge between the communities which is being driven, all of that need to be tackled. Adit, I'm coming to you. When it comes to lumpen elements like Amritpal Singh, which are a direct threat to India's internal security, how is he perceived in UK? There are various groups, there are various sections, different lobbies working out there. But when it comes to a divided discourse, of course, the students there in India or the Indian community wouldn't like a man of this nature. And of course, we have seen those protests as well. But there are sympathizers that exist. What kind of narrative have you witnessed around this element called Amritpal Singh?
Anusha, just to break it down, so there are two different polities that exist in Britain. One which is bothered about what happens, what politics is played out in India, and one which is absolutely not bothered. The one which is not bothered is the one that essentially the Indian diaspora ends up voting for, because we're quite a divided society. So people who work within services or public services would essentially vote for the Labour Party. People who work within private sector or banking or financial sectors would essentially vote for the Lib Dems or the Conservatives. The ones who vote for the Labour Party is where the concern is, because Labour Party is the one which is playing the what I would call is the cheap electoral politics of vote bank politics. And they are the ones who are driving this wedge, and they are playing out the politics of India in Britain. So you would see Labour MPs being part of these protests, actively driving these protests. You would see them standing up in Parliament and questioning India's stance on, Article 370, or what India is doing in Kashmir, or what India is doing in Punjab, etc., etc. So that's where the problem essentially lies. And very soon you're going to have a Labour government in a couple of years, because at this rate we don't see the Conservatives making it into the through the elections in 2024. So that's I think that will be a massive challenge for any government that is coming into power in India.
You've put that very rightly, that it's a divided house in many ways, and that's why there are different kind of narratives that exist. Mr. Trigoniat, giving you the last word there as we close this debate. Is it more than the rare show of optics that came by removing the barricades that India can do at this point in time? Yes, in the medium term or in the long term, we can have some more measures that we can think about. But when it comes to this issue right now, is it something more you would suggest the Indian government do?
Well, I think that if there is no reaction, although there are statements have been made by the British government and even their High Commissioner here, but expressing regret or expressing condemnation and all that is just not sufficient, because there are repetitive acts like this. And therefore, there are two things one government of India can do. What they are doing now, number one, convey a message. Of course, if something happens to the British diplomats here, it will be entirely our responsibility. So I don't think they'll let it go that way, because India does not believe in these kind of tactics. But at the same time, we can downgrade our relations at the moment. We can call back our ambassador. I mean, that is one thing that will convey some message strictly. But I don't know if it will be done or not, because that will make a very strong message that if we are not secure, we can't be staying there.
All right. With that, it's a wrap on this discussion. I thank you all for joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Arun, Anand, Adit Kothari, Mr. Sushant Sareen and Anil Trigoniat. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the show. I want to cut across once again to Ritangshu Bhattacharya, who's tracking all the developments outside the Indian High Commission in UK, in London, and getting us all the details. Ritangshu, the latest updates you have.
Yes, Anusha, very quickly, I'll show what's happening around me at this point here. The protest continues more or less as it was going on. There is no let up in terms of the security cover. I'm very quickly going to walk across, because they're not letting people stand on this side. And while walking, you can understand there's a heavy security cover here. This area of the street, which is where the Indian High Commission, as you'll see it in a moment, is secure. They're not letting anyone apart from the media contingent go on to that side. This side is where the protest is going on, as you can see. They have been fairly peaceful and static for a while now. All that's happening is sloganeering and speeches against India and in favor of Khalistan. This is, of course, the flagpole that remains secured through barbed wire, and of course the massive tricolour here, which continues to shine down upon everyone on the street in terms of a visual display of Indian strength. And that's about it, Anusha. Things are going on as normal here. Security presence is here. They don't see too concerned about the strength of the protesters on the other side of the street. And about an hour or so, we expect the protest to wrap up here. And in case any eventuality happens, the police say they're confident that they'll be able to handle the situation and not let things worsen at all. Back to you, Anusha.
Ritangshu Bhattacharya getting us all the details. So for now, things are under control. I'm glad that this time London Police is able to do its job, which is to ensure that this protest remains peaceful and the Indian High Commission in London is secure. Moving on to another big story of the day, where it seems that uncontrolled urbanization has come to fore once again. And this is against the interest of the IT capital of the country, the city of Bengaluru. Just months after Bengaluru was flooded, locals and activists near the Hosakerehalli lake in South Bengaluru have claimed that BBMP, the municipal authority, is constructing a 25-foot wide road through the middle of the lake, and this is to allegedly benefit a luxury real estate project. Now, they claim that the road is being built to give a suitable access to the real estate project. After the visuals to the road, the construction allegedly which is happening, it went viral on social media. The BBMP claims that it is being made for the movement of machinery to desilt the lake. They say there is no construction of that nature which is happening. But there are activists that point out that hydraulic rollers are being used to compact the road, which is not done for a temporary structure, adding that the lake was desilted in 2017 and without any temporary road. Moreover, reports suggest that Karnataka Tank Conservation Development Authority, which oversees such lakes, has not granted any such clearance to carry out the restoration work. The Congress, as expected, has hit out at the BJP government, accusing it of corruption and promoting the builder mafia. This is the nexus that we have heard earlier as well. So what is the truth behind the split of this lake? Is this for Vikas development or yet another sign of rules being flouted for urban project? And the entire nexus of the municipal authority and the real estate developers that we have seen in the city of Bengaluru happen earlier as well. Our focus.
It is very disappointing that lake is being destroyed in the name of development and rejuvenation. Part of the lake is being destroyed.
This development, which is totally unnecessary. I think we are not only hampering the lake's ecology, but destroying the biodiversity.
Well, is this development or another sheer violation happening at the cost of very sensitive ecology in the city of Bengaluru? Cutting across to my colleague Harish, who will get us more details on the story. Harish, there are arguments on both the sides, but what are your ground reports telling you? Is it a case where proper permissions have been taken? Is it actually a case where it's just desilting work and a temporary construction which is happening? What is it that the activists are claiming from the ground, and of course the politics around it?
Well, there are two aspects why it makes it very difficult to believe what the government is saying. One, what's happening on the ground. You're looking at a 25 feet wide road being built. We have seen hundreds of lakes in Bangalore. Remember, there are more than 180 lakes in the city, many of them that have been desilted over the last decade or so. But in none of those cases, we have seen a road being built just for desilting purpose. One. Second, you look at how this road is being built. They're using hydraulic compressors to build this road, which is used only in a permanent structure. The government claims this is a temporary structure or a temporary road. And that's why many are asking, then why are you putting in so much money and effort for a temporary structure? We've never seen a road being built for desilting purpose. Third, even if you're taking up desilting and you want to build a bund, you're supposed to take approval from the Tank Conservation Authority. That hasn't happened at all. The Tank Conservation Authority is clearly saying that this goes against the rules. We haven't been told at all. Okay. And the other aspect, the kind of image that we see of the man who's now being held responsible for this, Mr. Muniratna, the local MLA and BJP minister, he has a dubious past of approving works or rather taking up works that do not have even DPR or government approval or even environment approval. So that's the reason why you have local residents saying that this could be a road that's being built for a luxury project that's right next to the lake that doesn't have a very clear access road right now, and perhaps these builders are being helped
before I let you go,
fear.
very briefly from you, I wonder aloud with you that when there is any kind of construction that is happening, temporary or a permanent road which is being constructed, if I understand government procedure, there has to be a proper proposal in place why a road is being constructed, proper permissions need to be taken, proper funds need to be allocated. It can't be up in the air that nobody knows why a road is being constructed. So when the activists are claiming that this is to give access to the real estate project, do they have any evidence to back these claims?
Well, there are two aspects to it. They are saying if the government says they want to desilt this lake and build a walkway or walk path, it's usually around the lake. Nowhere do we see this cutting across the lake, right through the middle of the lake, the heart of the lake, splitting it to two. and where it ends perhaps is very close to where this project site is. And that's the reason why these residents are saying, well, the only beneficiary or the only reason we see such a project being undertaken is to help these luxury real estate project guys, and we do not see any sort of a work that's happening here. One. Second, this lake was desilted in 2017. You do not need to desilt a lake every 5 years or 7 years. It's done only in a couple of decades, depending on how much of silt has accumulated in the lake. They're saying when it's done in 2017 without building any lake through the without building any road through the lake, why is it that now you're taking up within 5 years a similar project? Second, why are you building this road in such a way that to a 25-feet road? So these are questions that really makes one wonder whether there's something more to it than what the BBMP is saying.
Absolutely.
Also remember, the BBMP commissioner still hasn't commented.
The BBMP commissioner still hasn't commented. Thank you, Harish, for joining us on the broadcast and putting down the facts as they are. Taking these questions to Mr. B.S. Arun, who's a senior journalist joining us on the broadcast. We also have Mr. Nagaraju Yadav, who's the Karnataka Congress spokesperson, joining us on the show. Mr. Arun, as my colleague pointed out, that the desilting of this lake was done back in 2017. You don't need to do that in every 5 years. It's done in a couple of decades. And even the last time when this work was carried out, there was no temporary road that was needed to be constructed in this manner. It doesn't add up when the BBMP says we are only doing it for desilting of the lake.
Yes, it's quite shocking to know, and it doesn't need rocket science to say that desilting doesn't require dumping of soil into the lake. It's very obvious. If it's counterproductive also. So on the face of it, it's very obvious. Second, I believe since you mentioned about the commissioner of BBMP, I spoke to my former colleague in Deccan Herald who broke the story first 2 days ago about the latest in the in this lake issue, and he says that he spoke to the BBMP commissioner and he's sending. Remember, yesterday he said that the commissioner said that he's not aware of this issue at all. And today he has said that he will be sending a joint commissioner of BBMP to examine and report to him the issue. But the point is, none of the departments, the 4 departments are involved, I believe, in this, dumping of soil, which include the lake development, the major roads, the stormwater drain department. All these 3 or 4 departments, they are pointing finger at each other and not taking any responsibility.
Once again, a classic recipe for disaster that we have seen with various projects and various eco-sensitive zones in the city of Bengaluru. Mr. Yadav, the municipal authorities argue that we're just doing development work and you're making a mountain out, a mountain out of a molehill, and this is clearly a political allegation, and there is no evidence to prove that this is some kind of a real estate project that we are backing. Does the opposition have an evidence when they claim that this is being done to promote the builder mafia in some way or to benefit a real estate project in some way?
No, very clearly it's understood now. Just now the Harish and other senior journalists what we spoke about. Do you think they're all politicians?
Not at all. I don't think so.
Not a politician.
But it's my job to ask you that question, and hence I asked you, sir.
Not you. The senior journalist and Harish who reported on this issue, are they they're not politicians. Nobody is doing politics out of this. Actually, BJP government is completely hand in glove with the real estate people is one part. The second part, to desilt the entire lake, do you need to build a road in between the lake? It's not a rocket science at all. It's completely a project of the MLA and the local leaders there. They're trying to put up this to give an access to the luxurious apartments there and make money out of it. Nothing but a clear-cut case of corruption. When you want to desilt the lake, there is some formalities and there is some kind of work to be done where you take the permission from the Karnataka Tank Conservative and Development Authority. You are not taking the permission from them at all. And the BBMP commissioner says that he is not aware of the project. How did the project take place without the consent of the commissioner and the knowledge of the commissioner? What does it show? What we were claiming all these days was 40% commission. Day by day, the proofs are coming out saying that they are ready to do any kind of work in Bangalore. 40% is paid there. You don't need any permission to do any work in Bangalore. The residents and the people in and around are saying very clearly, road is not required because that is the lake to be preserved. Lake means it's water. Water means the clean water. There should be a lot of
these
guidelines
are the
framed.
lakes that
38 lakes are
prevent
recovered.
and protect a city like Bengaluru from flooding when there is rain or when there is any kind of
yes,
untoward situation.
Yes. Recently, when there was a rain, what happened?
No, we
happened?
remember that,
All
and
the
I
people,
said
all
that
the
in the
IT
beginning
company,
of the
IT
show,
corridor.
that we call it the IT capital, and we remember that when this time there was some amount of excess rainfall, how the entire city of Bengaluru was adversely affected. Mr. Arun, I'm coming to you. This is the election year. Both the Congress and the BJP know that this is a very, very important election. It's a tough battle that both the parties need to fight. Why is BBMP brazening this out, keeping in mind that even earlier such allegations have been made? This entire nexus between the municipal authorities and the real estate mafia is much spoken of. This is actually the prime reason why Bengaluru continues to face so many difficult urban issues, civic issues like flooding. Then why haven't the authorities really woken up and perhaps the Chief Minister's office taken cognizance of this?
Possibly this must have been a project that was given permission quite some time back, and they have taken up the work now. What is surprising to me is that, the Chief Minister is the Minister for Bangalore Development also. So he ought to have come out and given a statement on this. The BBMP Commissioner must have said something on this. I will draw your attention to one statement. Since you mentioned about the politicians here, the Chief Minister, immediately after the Bangalore floods, we all know about how, what was the menace that Bangalore faced, especially the East Bangalore part, which is the IT corridor. I'll just read out two sentences from what the Chief Minister said when he was speaking in the legislature. And it's quite startling. He said, we have to remove encroachments, but influential people interfere and do politics. We will remove encroachment mercilessly, because if we don't take hard steps, there will be flooding in Bangalore again. He said many other things, but he has admitted that, there is politics here. And he also set up a committee, to ensure that there are no such encroachments here onwards. But we are seeing right in front of our eyes what is happening to the Bangalore lakes. I'll just point out one more thing. While speaking to this correspondent who broke his story, he said today and yesterday, several RWAs, resident welfare associations, called him and told him that, there are lakes which come under their vicinity, which are being, encroached upon, and soil being dumped there also. So, if you take up a survey, I think we will very well find many lakes which are, there are a few other lakes, few lakes which are remaining are being filled up.
Mr. Nagaraju Yadav, last 30 seconds to you, sir. How is it that the city of Bengaluru can preserve its lake? Because if this lovely city has to survive, it has to protect the environment and eco-sensitive zones.
No, the people who are in power, they should be sensitive to the issues of the civic communities of Bangalore. They should concentrate, forget politics about it, with whichever party they belong to. But they should have some sense of common sense to restrain from such activities and be away from all the real estate mafias and protect the lakes and protect the interest of the people of Bangalore. For every opposition claim, they should not say it is politics. We are definitely sitting here on the channel speaking is not politics at all. We are 130 crore people living in Bangalore. We have few lakes left. Around 200 lakes are there in Bangalore, which should be protected today. The lake means not just adding
I do agree with you.
I
do agree with you that this is a civic issue, and it requires the interests of all political parties and the citizenry as well. I'm sorry, sir.
25,000 crores. No, one second. 25,000 crores is spent on Bangalore roads. What is the condition of roads today? More than 7,000 crores is spent on potholes. How many deaths
and those potholes have claimed a lot of lives. You're right about that. A lot of civic issues that the city of Bengaluru needs to fix. It is the IT capital of the country. Thank you, Mr. B.S. Arun and Mr. Nagaraju Yadav, for joining us on the broadcast. And we hope that there's proper action that is taken on that so-called temporary structure which is being created across one of the eco-sensitive zone and the lakes. Slipping into a very short.
ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਰਮਡ ਐਕਟ ਦਾ ਕੇਸ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਸਟਡੀ ਚੋਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤ ਤੋਂ ਭਜਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਐਡ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ FIR ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਹਿਮ ਗੱਲ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਈ ਆ ਕਿ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੌੜਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਨੰਗਲ ਅੰਬੀਆਂ ਪਿੰਡ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਿਆ। ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕੱਪੜੇ ਚੇਂਜ ਕੀਤੇ, ਉਹਨੇ ਸ਼ਰਟ ਪਾਈ, ਪੈਂਟ ਪਾਈ, ਫਿਰ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੌੜਿਆ, ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਲਵਾਰ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੀ।
5 से 6 केस दर्ज है भाई अमृतपाल सिंह के ऊपर और वो इंडियन पीनल कोड के केसेस हैं और कोई ऑफेंस नहीं लगाया। तो मानयोग अदालत ने इस पर कहा भी जो ये स्टोरी है, ये कहानी है स्टेट की, इस पर मानयोग अदालत को जो भरोसा नहीं है और 1 हफ्ते के अंदर अंदर भाई अमृतपाल सिंह को प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए जो ऑर्डर किया सरकार को जी, जो उन्होंने मानयोग जज साहब ने भी बोला है भी जो इतना बड़ा ऑपरेशन था, इतने ज़्यादा पुलिस वाले उसमें इन्वॉल्व थे, ये पॉसिबल नहीं हो सकता भी भाई अमृतपाल सिंह के जो बाकी साथी सारे हैं, एडवोकेट जनरल साहब ने भी कहा भी बाकी जो साथी सारे हैं वो गिरफ्तार हो जाएं और भाई अमृतपाल सिंह ना हो। जज साहब ने कहा है ये पॉसिबल नहीं हो सकता। और इस पे एक और बड़ी ज़्यादा ज़रूरी चीज़ है, एडवोकेट जनरल साहब ने ये भी कहा भी इसमें कोई भी फायरिंग नहीं की गई, सभी को बिना किसी फायरिंग किए गए उन्होंने पकड़ लिया गया है।
Now, tracking the developments of the Khalistani supporters in India, that's what we're going to be doing right now. As the manhunt to nab pro-Khalistani leader Amritpal Singh enters its 5th day, new videos continue to emerge of him trying to evade the police. Now, in a new CCTV footage that has been accessed, Amritpal can be seen ditching the Brezza car and then escaping on a bike. Now, remember, first he used a Mercedes and then switched cars and used a Brezza. Now, in this, what we're learning is that the Brezza car was ditched and then he escaped later on a bike. Now, according to the police, Amritpal also changed his clothes at a Gurdwara before escaping on a bike. Meanwhile, politics has also erupted after the Punjab government's crackdown against Amritpal and his aides. Shiromani Akali Dal President Sukhbir Badal has said that they will provide legal assistance to all Sikh youths who are being arrested by the police. He further added that the Akali Dal will ensure that constitutional rights are not trampled upon by the AAP government. All right, this is an exclusive breaking input that we're getting. When Amritpal came back to India, the Punjab border saw the highest ever drone movements at the borders, and this is what data is showing. This is what data is telling us. Agencies also found linkages of Amritpal with cross-border drug dealers who are based in Pakistan, and we're learning about certain names here. This is Billa, Bilal and Rana. Now, to get us more details on this, we're being joined by News 18's Ankur Sharma. Ankur, over to you.
Yeah, Aisha, so it's central agencies are suspecting that since time Amritpal arrived in Punjab last year in August, so there has been a massive increase in drone movements last year. In fact, they have recorded the highest number of drone movements from Pakistan side, sending arms, ammunition, drugs through drones to India. And according to the data, last year 256 drone movements have been noticed by BSF, which is approximately 4 times high than 2021, which in 2021 it was 67 drone movements which was noticed by BSF. Data also showed that Jammu border also saw a rise, almost a double rise last year of the drone movement, and there is also concerns that now agencies are linking these high movement of drones because of Amritpal.
Welcome back, and there's some latest news coming in from the Supreme Court. It seems like that entire war of words between the Supreme Court Collegium and the Union Government is heated up. The Collegium has now slammed the Union Government for withholding names that were recommended for elevation. A latest resolution says that it's a matter of grave concern as the government is withholding the recommended names, and that disturbs the seniority that the Supreme Court Collegium wants to maintain when it comes to the appointment at the Supreme Court. Ananya with us on the broadcast. Ananya, what does this latest resolution say?
Well, this latest resolution by the Supreme Court Collegium definitely slams the central government for, withholding names. I've seen how this controversy has panned out, and this time the Supreme Court Collegium have very, very clearly said that the withholding of names actually results into, some kind of hindrance or blow on the seniority that the Supreme Court Collegium wants to maintain in the appointment of judges. Apart from that, it has also said that the centre should act upon the previous recommendations as soon as possible. The action should be taken right away, and you know, it has also been stated by the Supreme Court Collegium that such a practice should not be continued because it affects the seniority, and the Supreme Court Collegium actually makes these recommendations after considering all of the aspects, which also includes the seniority and the line in which the judges would be going, in which you know, they would be taking those posts, and that's the reason why withholding of such names would actually affect into the seniority of these judges, because it would delay the names, or it would make some people who are not at par or who are not as senior being appointed first, and then those who are actually the ones who deserve that post at the earlier level. And this is exactly what the Supreme Court Collegium has said. It has asked the central government to take strong steps and to ensure that such things are not repeated. They've also reiterated that the recommendation to appoint Mr. John Satyan for his elevation is something that the central government should act upon and later consider the other recommendations, the fresh ones, and then only actually proceed on with the fresh ones.
Well, the seniority at the Supreme Court is decided from your date of appointment. So, however senior a judge you may be at the High Court, or there may be an elevation from the bar may come in. So, if you're appointed first at the Supreme Court, you're senior, then somebody who's appointed later who may have more experience than you. This interestingly also will affect the line of succession, who becomes the Chief Justice of India in the days to come. So that's something that the Collegium is worried about. There's some more news coming in, and this is about COVID preparedness. Well, telling you more details of the Prime Minister's high-level meeting to review the status and preparedness of public health response to COVID-19 and influenza. The Prime Minister has advised that precaution and maintenance of vigil is the utmost need of the hour. He has further emphasized on the need to enhance surveillance, testing and ramp up genome sequencing. The basics of how we fought COVID-19, we need to go back to them. Mock drills will be organized again in various hospitals. Pallavi with us on the broadcast. Pallavi, the details of the meeting.
So, as we know, that over the last few days, there has been a concern that COVID cases are slowly rising. And therefore, I call the and what is coming out of it, the Prime Minister insisted that, you know, this message needs to be sent across to the people, that there has to be COVID-appropriate behavior, especially those who are comorbid, especially the aged who will go in crowded, for example, in hospitals. This must also be ready to meet eventuality. There should be facilities for the COVID task fighters as well. So these are the main measures which are trying to send a message that we should be keeping our guards up.
Pallavi Ghosh carrying us all the details, going back to the basics of testing, tracing and ensuring that there is genome sequencing as well. The public healthcare system needs to be prepared for this. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition. Thank you for watching.
Have been restored, people are going out and people are working very normally. So yes, the situation is normal, but yes, the manhunt for Amritpal Singh is still on.
Absolutely. Anshul, thank you so much for joining us and for bringing us those details. Now we're going to listen to some other statements that have come in on the story.
जो भी काम किया जाएगा किसी ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਲੀਗਲ ਅਰੈਸਟ 'ਚ ਨਾ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਅਕਿਊਜ਼ਡ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਫੜਿਆ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਤੁਰੰਤ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਰੈਜ਼ਾ ਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੌੜਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਮੌਕੇ ਤੋਂ ਉਹ ਬਰੈਜ਼ਾ ਕਾਰ ਰਿਕਵਰ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ 4 ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਭੱਜਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਦਦ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਡੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਵੀ 315 ਬੋਰ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਰਾਈਫਲ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ ਕੁਝ ਤਲਵਾਰਾਂ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ ਵਾ ਵਾਕੀ ਟਾਕੀ ਸੈੱਟ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਵਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਰਮਡ ਐਕਟ ਦਾ ਕੇਸ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਸਟਡੀ ਚੋਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤ ਤੋਂ ਭਜਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਐਡ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ FIR ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਹਿਮ ਗੱਲ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਈ ਆ ਕਿ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੌੜਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਨੰਗਲ ਅੰਬੀਆਂ ਪਿੰਡ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਿਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕੱਪੜੇ ਚੇਂਜ ਕੀਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਸ਼ਰਟ ਪਾਈ ਪੈਂਟ ਪਾਈ ਫਿਰ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੌੜਿਆ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਲਵਾਰ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਛੱਡ ਦਿੱਤੀ
5 से 6 केस दर्ज है भाई अमृतपाल सिंह के ऊपर और वो इंडियन पीनल कोड के केसेस हैं और कोई ऑफेंस नहीं लगाया तो मानयोग अदालत ने इस पर कहा भी जो ये स्टोरी है ये कहानी है स्टेट की इस पर मानयोग अदालत को जो भरोसा नहीं है और एक हफ्ते के अंदर अंदर भाई अमृतपाल सिंह को प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए जो ऑर्डर किया सरकार को जी, जो उन्होंने माननीय जज साहब ने भी बोला है भी जो इतना बड़ा ऑपरेशन था, इतने ज़्यादा पुलिस वाले उसमें इन्वॉल्व थे, ये पॉसिबल नहीं हो सकता भी भाई अमृतपाल सिंह के जो बाकी साथी सारे हैं, एडवोकेट जनरल साहब ने भी कहा भी बाकी जो साथी सारे हैं वो गिरफ्तार हो जाएं और भाई अमृतपाल सिंह ना हो। जज साहब ने कहा है ये पॉसिबल नहीं हो सकता। और इस पे एक और बड़ी ज़्यादा ज़रूरी चीज़ है, एडवोकेट जनरल साहब ने ये भी कहा भी इसमें कोई भी फायरिंग नहीं की गई, सभी को बिना किसी फायरिंग किए गए उन्होंने पकड़ लिया गया है।
Now, tracking the developments.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. Elements, forces who have been propped up by the enemy, who are working to break India, disrupt Bharat, are at work, ladies and gentlemen. They also want to tear the social fabric of our country. These anti-India elements are busy protesting, and they are doing it on foreign soil. Right now in London, as we speak, these protesters have gathered outside